Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but I've adopted a quality over quantity approach, and if I don't have something to say, I should probably not be talking. I'll try to have more things to say in the future. I have a odd relationship with magic. Not with a K. Stage, sleight of hand, close up. I love it. Some of my television heroes growing up were magicians. Roland Hand from the original Mission Impossible, played by Martin Landau. Bill Bixby's Anthony Blake from The Magician. Even Quincy, Jack Klugman in Quincy, was a magician of some note. I know this because all of these characters had memberships to a beautiful place in Hollywood called the Magic Castle, a secretive club for magicians and their ilk. I was lucky enough to have been able to visit the Magic Castle a couple of times. I had a friend who was a member who brought some of us along. He has since departed. Rest in peace, Andy. But I've had a chance to see these wonderful mystical things. I really wanted to learn magic. But these hands don't do tricks. The amount of dexterity and coordination and timing required to perform sleight of hand is unfortunately beyond me. I've tried a lot. I got into studying ventriloquism as a side to my studies of magic. I've studied the theory and techniques and practiced, and these are just big old hams that I can barely get to type at a decent speed. So I remain a fan and student from a distance, but probably never a practitioner, at least not of traditional stage forms of magic. That does not mean I do not use those principles, particularly when I am running role-playing games. If you have not seen Christopher Nolan's movie, The Prestige, one, go see it. It is just a wonderful mind-bending thing, and David Bowie's Nikola Tesla, and a beautiful period piece, and thought-provoking and weird in all the right ways. But in it, there is a theory and system of magic proposed. I'm pretty sure it's not the first place it came out, but if you search for this 3-act system of stage magic online, most of what you're going to find are references to The Prestige, because it was presented so very well there. If you happen to be someone who knows where this theory originated from or has a correct original attribution to it, leave me a comment below or get in touch with me and let me know so I can at least put it in the liner notes. A magic trick comes in 3 acts, performed correctly. The first act is the pledge. The magician shows the audience something ordinary. A deck of cards, a piece of string, a pen, a coin. Invites the audience to examine it, kick it around, see that it is, in fact, to their own senses, ordinary. That it holds no surprises and should be doing nothing out of the ordinary. It probably isn't normal, but it will stand up to this inspection. Having been presented with something completely ordinary, the magician makes it do something extraordinary. This is the turn, the second act. The item disappears, moves, bursts into flame, explodes. It stops being what was expected. And leaves. Usually, most often, the turn is a disappearance. It's been palmed or flung, or a device has moved it out of the way. It's gone. In a way that cards and pens and coins generally don't actually leave. It's out of the ordinary. It's unusual. It is that burst that something unusual has just happened. The audience is looking for what happened to it. Checking cues, looking around the area that is presented to them. Is it in this hand? Is it in this hand? Or on the table anymore? Is it perhaps behind the ear? A very good set of magicians took to practicing things like that with short sleeves so that you could clearly see they did have nothing up their sleeve, as there was no sleeve for them to have an up of. Lance Burton comes to mind. But the trick's not over, because that was extraordinary. That was out of the ordinary. It was not what you were expecting from that device, but it wasn't spectacular. You don't clap for the extraordinary. You clap for the spectacular. For that, you go to the third act of the trick, the prestige. The item comes back. It's the hardest and trickiest part, because it doesn't just come back. It comes back in a way that is unexpected, surprising, and spectacular. This general 3-act system plays on the emotions such that expectations have been subverted. You are a little off center. You might have been expecting the card to disappear, but it vanishes at a time and in a way you weren't expecting it to. And then when it comes back, Penn and Teller, oh my gosh, their work in amazing reveals. Every single time they have looked at the camera and said, "Is that your card?" is just... that's where the money goes in. That's where you see the showmanship and the spectacle of the prestige. What it takes to bring that back in big order. Because the prestige alone means nothing. If you just show up with the 3 of clubs and say, "Is this your card?" you can have things on fire behind you, light off fireworks, have flags waving, and it will mean nothing. As much spectacle as there was, it has no context if you don't precede it with the pledge and the turn. It's not that the card is appearing, it's that it is reappearing. I can't do stage magic, but I use these principles when I sit down at a table with dice and books and friends. Spoilers. If you are in my games, spoilers for, well, me start here. Because I'm going to reveal some techniques that generally... magicians don't reveal their techniques. I'm not a magician. I can't. There is a reason they don't reveal their techniques, and there's a reason that I might not want to reveal this one to everyone who plays with me, because it might take a little bit of the impact out of my games. Then again, it might not. Even I know how the tricks are done, and I still enjoy them. That being said, your group is sitting in a tavern they often sit in between adventures, when a courier from the Count comes to your table, knowing when and where he could find you. The courier sits down with you, has a flagon to clear his throat, and says, "A shipment of gold, the strong box, that was meant to pay the garrison at the south end of the county, has gone missing. It looks like a warband of orcs took it just before it reached the garrison." While the Count can certainly afford to replace the payment, he cannot afford to have a warband of orcs interfering with his commerce and his payments of his troops. So, if you would be so kind to go and dispatch this warband of orcs, the Count has agreed that the contents of the strongbox can simply become yours. Here is the key if you choose to accept this assignment. He would send his rangers, but they're on the far north end of the county, mapping the border. He really needs you to take care of this if you would be so kind. That's a pledge. That is simply a pledge. That is an ordinary situation. Laid out, flat, no curves or twists. That is a Saturday afternoon at the table, we're going to roll dice and kill things situation. You let the players kick it around a little bit. Pick it up. Ask questions. Ask about what else is in the strong box, or how they know it's orcs, or how much money is inside of it, what's the path, where on the road do they get hit, what side of the road do they get hit from. Not all this information is going to be available because reports are sketchy, but some of it, and it all seems perfectly normal. You know, it's unusual that a warband of orcs is attacking a supply train like this, but it can happen. It's the turn. The ordinary has been presented as ordinary and examined and found to be ordinary to all apparent senses. The orcs are found in a fight as had, but the orcs appear to have better weapons than you were expecting them to have. They even seem to have a wagon that is not of orcish construction off to the side of their camp, and it is loaded with better armor, shields, and swords than orcs should have access to. It is difficult to get a read on these items during the fight because it is hard to examine a sword when it is being swung at your head, but afterwards, there's going to be an afterwards because these are player characters and those are monsters, and this is how nature flows. The swords can be found to have the stamp of the barony's guard, or the count's guard, on the base of the pommel, and the strongbox is nowhere to be found. This is the turn. What was ordinary has now become extraordinary. Not only is the strongbox gone, but there is the orcs are armed with better weapons than they should be expected to have, although this is also a clue and should lead into the next act. But for the moment, the item the folks are after, the thing that they were told most about, it's gone. The party goes to the garrison because that's where these weapons appear to have come from. The guards are amazed to find that orcs have been holding on to their weapons. They weren't aware of any gone missing. The party might have to produce a scalp or two to prove that they did in fact defeat orcs to get these weapons. The captain of the garrison is called, who examines the weapons, agrees that yes, they appear to come from here, calls for the quartermaster to explain this, and the quartermaster does not respond. His quarters are found to be empty. He and 10 of his closest confederates within the garrison appear to have left at speed briefly ago. The Prestige. The Prestige shows up as the last act of the adventure. It is where the spectacle happens. And it's tricky in a role-playing game because in a magic trick, the magician performs the Prestige. And in a role-playing game, the players perform the Prestige, whether they know they are performing it or not. There is a chase. Now, this chase depends entirely on the level and competence of the party and the level of spectacle that you want to generate as a dungeon master. Is it a stealth chase through darkened woods? Is it hell-bent for leather on horseback down a bad road trying to get out of the county? Is it a race to catch them as they are boarding a ship that is bound to set sail? They're trying to cast the ropes off to get away, and the party shows up at the dock just at the last minute. is the quartermaster, has he stolen an airship and has it waiting at a tower nearby, and it has just pulled away from the tower, and the PCs have to figure out how to get to the airship to stop him. This is a scale that you can set depending on how you're feeling about what your player characters are capable of. The quartermaster's got a couple of magic users with him, and his folks are talented fighters, and there's a fight, and those are the bad guys, and the player characters are player characters, so this comes to an end. And in the quartermaster's quarters on board the ship is the strong box that he has not yet been able to break into which the key presented in the first act fits perfectly. The quartermaster is brought back, dead or alive. The captain congratulates the group on their ability to take care of this traitor, and probably pays them a little extra bit of a bounty. The garrison has received the replacement pay while this has been going on, because the count sent it on while the riffraff were busy with the player characters. Spectacle. You could start off with the quartermaster running, but then you know that's what you're getting into. Presenting it as pledge turn prestige gives it that enhanced spectacle in the third act. That, okay, the thing that we're after, we know where to find it. We didn't find it there. Is it someplace over here? Yes, but oh my gosh, what you have to go through to get it. That is the player characters performing the prestige. The magician isn't producing the strongbox. Player characters are, by beating up the person who has it on an airship over sharks and potentially lava, maybe lava sharks, I don't know. This is where the Penn and Teller showmanship comes in. That last fight can be, having gone through the pledge and the turn, that last fight can be as bonkers crazy nuts as you want. They're only getting the strongbox back, but they're getting the strongbox back, and the more intense and tense and stressful that fight is, the more the player characters get depleted, the more they are genuinely concerned for the safety of their characters in that fight, the bigger and better your payoff at the end of Act 3. I keep a bucket list of things I want to throw at player characters in my head at every game. Some things I have thrown more than once, but I usually change the paint scheme a little bit so that it's not as recognizable. I get to a new group, it's all over again. And these are things I save for Act 3. There's a presentation of what you're looking for. There is the subversion of that expectation and something extraordinary happens. And then there is the expectation coming back in spades, on fire, with dinosaurs. It is not the kind of magic trick that is going to get me membership in the Magic Castle. I only wish it would. I'd love to be a member, but that's expensive, and I am not. Someday, though, maybe. I hope to go back. We'll see. In the meantime, I will continue to perform this magic. I'm going to do a few videos like this on how I bring elements of other passions and hobbies that have a weird or odd aspect to them to my role-playing table, and how I apply those, and an invitation for you to try the technique yourself. If you have listened to this and realized you have run games like that or played in games like that, let me know, because it's not a bad storytelling technique, and it tends to lead to some pretty phenomenal stories. And I'd love to hear your stories. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have your own stories of a 3-act system, or how this could play into your own games, leave me a comment below. Anything you'd like to hear me talk about, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, things that you would like to see me discuss, go ahead and leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You will love leaving me one. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you do hit the subscribe button, go ahead and ring the little bell next to it, so that you can be notified as soon as my videos become available, algorithm willing. If you would like to support the channel and me in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps and allows me to make better videos more often. Or just better videos, hopefully, more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I am Scott Corum, this is what has mattered to me, and I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.